Hello, I'm Luke Toulson and you're watching What's Up, What's On Magazine.
We're the Dog Eared Collective and you're watching What's Up, What's On Magazine.
Hello, I'm Jim Smallman and you are watching What's Up, What's On Magazine.
Hello, I'm Luke Benson and you're watching What's Up, What's On Magazine.
Hi there, I'm Mark Restuccia and you are watching What's Up, What's On Magazine.
Hello, I'm Tania Edwards and you are watching What's Up, What's On Magazine. I am a stand-up comedian and I have been doing comedy for about 4 years now, I think. I got into comedy because I had been writing for years, but I was temping basically between admin jobs, between writing jobs, and then I ended up kind of writing between temping jobs. And I remember being in a bank reception, I think it was, and there was no windows, and I was sitting next to a really boring girl who was talking about her boyfriend's Louis Vuitton handbag, and I started Googling friends that I hadn't seen for ages. And one of them had been nominated for the Perrier, and I was so jealous, and I went and saw a gig, and actually Holly was on at that gig too, and she got nominated for the same award last year, and it was Luke Toulson, Joe Wilkinson and Holly Walsh, and I watched that and thought, I'm going to do stand-up myself.
Why did I get into comedy? Because I didn't want a real job.
I got into comedy because I got sick of all of the free booze and easy women in accounting.
I have been doing stand-up for coming up to 6 years. How much of that I've been making you laugh is a question for debate. I got into comedy because I failed at everything else. If you make enough bad decisions in life, you end up as a stand-up comedian.
I have allegedly been making people laugh for 7 years. It's just turned my 7-year anniversary since I started doing this alleged job for a living. It's not a job. I got into comedy because I used to be a buyer for Next and I had to do a lot of presentations and I've got really bad nerves. So a friend of mine said, why don't you go along and do a comedy course in Leicester where I'm from? So I went and did it and had no intention of doing the gig at the end of 12 weeks, but then fell in love with it and started doing it and then eventually quit work and started doing this. I tried to get fired for a long time first so I get 3 months' wages, but in the end I just had to pack it in.
Who are my comedy heroes? Lots of them. Jimmy Carr, Eddie Izzard, a few others like Stuart Lee, he's pretty good. All the successful ones really.
Some of our comedy heroes hail from Yorkshire, Vic and Bob in particular, the League of Gentlemen, and Garth Marenghi, who doesn't hail from Yorkshire, but we like anyway. We won't hold it against him.
My comedy heroes were and still are Frank Skinner, Richard Pryor, Eddie Izzard, Eddie Murphy, and Jason Byrne, who, because I do a lot of comparing and Jason Byrne's kind of anarchic, wandering around, being daft style kind of influences me and has influenced my Edinburgh show this year.
A lot of my jokes are about my kids. I've got a 10-year-old son who has just got his first girlfriend, but she is, maybe she'll grow up to be pretty, but I think it's more the fact that my son just doesn't know what pretty is yet, and she's very, very disappointing. What's her name? David.
My first gig, which was on June the 11th, 2005, was in a bar called Valkyrie's in Loughborough, and it was in front of 20 people, and the compere decided to try and heckle me on my first ever gig, and I didn't know how to deal with heckling at that point, so I merely offered to kill him outside. So that kind of taught me to have better heckle comebacks, which leads on to the next question, which is my best heckle comeback was I was doing some gigs in Los Angeles for a comedy festival, and they sent along a reviewer from the Los Angeles Times, and she was very drunk and got the wrong end of the stick from something that I was doing, which she thought was sexist and wasn't sexist, and she decided to heckle me by being really clever and using a big word which would confuse me. So she decided to call me a misogynist. And when she called me a misogynist, my reaction to that, instead of going, that's a bit harsh or whatever, was to just react to being called a misogynist by saying, quiet love, men are talking, which isn't the brightest response with a reviewer. But she did give me a 5-star review and gave me an award. So,
Our best heckle comeback to date we're thinking is when I played a woman who was selling parties for wakes. She wanted a volunteer from the audience, specifically a female one. A guy drunk shouted out some obscenity and I said, I'm looking for a widow, not a wanker. It seemed to go down quite well.
What I love about the Edinburgh Festival is I suppose the difference between the groups. You'll have all of the hormone-driven jailbaits, and then you'll have the hungover, pretty embittered comedian, and everyone should meet in the middle.
In Edinburgh, I am doing a show called Killer Instinct. It's an hour of stand-up comedy, and it will be at the Underbelly every night in the Clover in Bristow Square at 10:50 p.m. So come along and have a look.
The things I love about the Edinburgh Festival is all my friends are in the same place at the same time. I don't live in London, which means I don't see my mates as much as I'd like. So I get to see all my friends, I get to go and watch my friends being funny, I get to do weird late night shows like Late and Live and stuff, as well as doing my basic show. And I just get to have fun. And no one looks at me weird for being a tattooed man who likes to try and make people laugh and tell silly stories. Everyone just goes, oh, he's one of those.
What we love about the Edinburgh Festival is there is so much going on. It is just a hotbed of everything and anything, and you can see the most random shows, and it's a brilliant atmosphere, really.
The best cafe in Edinburgh, I would say, is Oink, because they do like these pork roll things, but only have one once a week, otherwise you'll get a bit porky yourself.
I think the best place to cure a hangover is, I don't know, the City Cafe. That is a treat. Maybe Oink.
I win in the end by having a good comeback. A little story I'm going to tell you is about, I'm straight edge, which means that I don't drink, I don't smoke and I don't do drugs. And one of the reasons for this is because I used to have a massive habit of all of these things. And now I'm very, very sensible and very well behaved. One cautionary tale I like to do at universities about taking drugs is the fact that once I took so much LSD at university that I thought I was invisible. And I did this when my friends were out. And they also had large amounts of LSD on them, but they just went out to get a pizza. And when they came back, I thought that I would scare them by sneaking up on them and going, woo. But then I thought if I do that, they'd obviously, because I'm invisible, they'd see my hat and my t-shirt and my jeans floating towards them. So I decided to do it completely naked and just wander around them going, woo, a lot. The problem with this was that when they arrived home, obviously they realised that I was completely naked. But as luck would have it, they had taken exactly the same amount of LSD as me and merely presumed that they were hallucinating me as well.